Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to djTLMtv. My name is djTLM and this is another episode of my gear. And in this episode, I wanted to show you my Vestax set. I used it in my last Saturday Sessions video and I received a lot of questions about the turntables and especially about the mixer. So I thought I'd give you a little close-up view to show you the PDX 3000 Mark II turntables and my PMC 05 Pro 4 MIDI scratch mixer. Let's take a look right now. So here we go, guys. This is my Vestax set right here. Let me start with the turntables, the PDX 3000 Mark II turntables. Now, I've been a big fan of Vestax for a long time, and the PDX 2000 were my touring turntables for a couple of years, and I went to a couple of sets of those. And not because the build quality was bad, but just because touring is real rough on equipment. In and out of flight cases, getting thrown into cars, buses, planes. I mean, you can have flight cases with big stickers that say fragile, but trust me, when it comes to airports, man, they really mess with your equipment, with your stuff. I mean, I don't know what they do with it, but yeah, I've had a couple of gigs where you arrive at your destination and you open your flight case, and for instance, the little feet at the bottom of the turntable broke. Now, that can only happen if you really bang around those flight cases. So, but overall, they performed very well, and this is the newest version. And if you compare this to a normal Technics turntable, you get a lot of extra features. So you have your pitch that goes to +10, -10, where the Technics goes to +8, -8. And you have an ultra pitch, which goes to +50 and -50. So if you combine these two, you can go to + and -60. Now just to let you hear how that sounds. So that's pretty extreme right there. Now, of course, this is more of a gimmick than actually useful in a mixing situation. There's only going to be a couple of scenarios where you might actually use that, but you have the ability to go that far with your pitch. Now, you can control your brake, make it real tight or real slow. I like to keep it just open a little bit, give it that classic turntable stop sound. I like that. You can control the torque, and it has a strong motor, so the torque is good, and you can set it to mix or all the way to the other side to performance, and that's catering towards the turntable is to give you just that little bit more power for the juggling and the scratching, so you can fine-tune it to your personal preference. You have the quartz lock because the pitch has no stop in the middle, so it's a very smooth pitch. A lot of DJs like that, but if you want to make sure that you have them both at 0, you can just lock it. And you have your reverse feature, classic Vestax. They had that on a lot of turntables. Now you have your 33, 45 RPM, and if you press these both, then you enable MIDI, and I'll get into that in a minute. Now, don't quote me on this, but I do believe that Vestax was the first company to come with the straight tone arm, and it's supposed to be more steady than the curved S arm like on the Technics. You also have a version of this with the S arm that's called the 3000 Mix, I believe. But in my opinion, it always worked very well with the 2000 as well. I used to do crazy stuff, lift up the turntable, hold it in my hand, still do the scratching, or for instance, lift it up so the audience could see the turntable. So lift it up all the way to there and then do some scratching. Now I'm using Serato Scratch Live, so it can't skip, but if the needle would have skipped, you would have heard that, and it didn't do that. And back in the days with the 2000, I was using real vinyl, and most of the times it didn't skip, so that is very steady. I did have some problems with the 2000 with this part right here because you can't lift that up, and sometimes it wouldn't stay in place anymore, but once again, that is because of the touring, because those turntables just took a terrible beating all the time. In a normal scenario like right here, and even if you move them around a little bit, you will not have a problem with that. At least I did not have a problem with that. This works perfectly. So let me just show you the connections, because that's a big plus when it comes to these turntables. Right here, your RCA out is the actual RCA cable. So if you ever have any problems with your cable, you can just take it out and plug in a new one. If you take the Technics 1200, the SL1200, the cable goes into the turntable. So if you ever have problems with the RCA or your ground wire, you would have to get your turntable repaired because they have to open it up to replace the cables. Here you can replace it yourself. Now it has a MIDI port right here. And like I said, you have MIDI mode. And for instance, what you could do with that is if you have vinyl with one tone on it, you can connect the MIDI port to a MIDI keyboard, and the keyboard would be able to play with the tone on that vinyl. Now, it's going to be too difficult to explain if you don't know what I mean. I'm going to leave a link in the description where you can see a DJ actually doing that. I've never done it, but that's something that you can do with this turntable. So, a lot of features, and it's a good quality turntable. It's definitely a good quality turntable. The styling is different than the classic 1200, so you have to appreciate that, and if you don't like it, then it's not for you, but I definitely like the way this looks. Now, when it comes to the bad boy in the middle right here, the PMC 05, I've had the 05, the 05-2, the 07, and this was their latest version, the 05 Pro 4. It's been out for 4 years now. And it is a typical Vestax scratch mixer, so around the crossfader it's going to be nice and empty, no buttons, no knobs, so it's all about your hand and the fader. But the cool thing about this one is that it is a MIDI scratch mixer. I call it a MIDI scratch mixer. They actually call it a professional mixing controller, but they call it a controller because you can use a lot of the functions right here, a lot of the buttons. You can assign those to certain features in your software. For me, it's Serato Scratch Live. So for instance, these 6 buttons on both sides, they control and trigger my 5 cue points. So if I want my beat to begin with the sticker here, I have a cue point at my first beat, so now my beat will start there. So that's cool. Now I only have 5 cue points, so that last button is assigned to enable my loop. If I have tracks and I have a loop set, then with this button I can turn the loop on and off. So that gives you a lot of control. But they added the shift button, and the cool thing about that shift button is that you don't have to hold it. You can just press it, and now you're in the secondary mode, and you can use this to assign it to more functions, more features. In my case, the top row is used to start my 3 effects for that channel and my 3 effects for that channel, so on, off, on, off. And the bottom row, these 6 are used to start my 6 samples in the sample bank. So that controls everything that I like to use. And you can do more. You can even use these little rotary knobs right there to scroll through your crates if you want to. I haven't assigned those, but you could. And very important, the faders are also MIDI. So if you're planning to do scratching mixing with videos, with Serato Video, you're gonna need a mixer that has a MIDI crossfader. If you don't, then the crossfader only works for audio, and you would have to get a separate device to switch between videos. In this case, the crossfader will switch the sound and the video. So that's pretty cool to have, and that's what I used it for actually. So you have a send and return part here if you want to add an external effects device, and this brings me to one of the downsides of this mixer, and that is that you don't have onboard effects. So it's actually, I don't want to call it an empty shell because that's not totally true, because you do have your own EQ and everything on the mixer, but I like to have effects on the mixer, and this one does not have effects on the mixer. So if you're not using Serato or some DJ software, then you don't have effects. But you could add an external device and control it with that. Or in my case, I just use my Serato effects. Another bad thing about this is that because it's coming from the computer back into the mixer, I don't have post fader effects. The channel has to be open to hear the effect. So now you hear it. But if I close the channel, then you don't hear the effect. Same with the fader. So if you're doing scratches, you want to be able to do scratch and now hear the echo. And in this case, you can't because you don't have post fader effects. So that's a downside. But overall, you have a great crossfader. It's definitely a good scratch mixer. You have the MIDI capabilities. You have a balanced XLR out and a balanced output for the monitor. And you have your booth control right here. So in my case, my master goes to the computer and my booth controls the speaker that I have on the wall here. So you have good control for that. And you can add a mic. You can control everything, set the curve for the crossfader, for the channel faders. You can put them in reverse. I'm gonna give you a shot of the front and the back as well. You also have your headphone input for the large input and for the small input. So you can do both. So if you ever forget this, then you can still plug in your headphone. Always a good thing. So I really like this set. And it's not a new set, I've had it for a while, but people just started asking questions after the Saturday sessions like, whoa, new set? Well, no, not new, but I want to switch it up every once in a while, and I thought I used the Vestax set because it is a nice set to use for scratching and turntablism. So I'm going to make sure that I give you a shot at the front and the back. There's a few more options, but in my case, I never found them that useful. You have an option with the outputs right here that you can connect the turntables to the mixer, even if you're using Serato Scratch Live. Normally you would connect the turntables to the external sound card, and from that they would go back into the mixer. In this case, they can go into the mixer, and you have a special output that says 2 box. So from that output you go into your Serato box, and it's supposed to be that will make it easier to switch between DJs. Listen, I'm not going to even go more in depth into that. I did not really see the use of that because you still have to switch around with cables, and I'm not switching between DJs. I just use this for myself. So in my case, my turntables are connected to my Serato box, and from the Serato box, I go back into my line input. So guys, that's the Vestax set, and that's all the info I have for you right now. This is not a full review. I just wanted to show you what I work with, show you some of the main features and what I like about them and what I don't like. Overall, it's good build quality. It's definitely made for mixing and for turntablism performance. I love working with this set, and I like to just switch it around for the Saturday sessions, so you might see me use some different equipment in the next videos as well. If you have any more questions about this set, you know where to find me, djTLMtv at djTLM.com. And like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And I'll be back tomorrow with the next video. Take care. Peace.